Now to a global news investigation. Over the past few years, about 130 Canadians have left the country to join terrorist groups such as the so-called Islamic State or Al-Qaeda. Some have died, others have been convicted for their crimes and served time in prison. The parole board reports obtained by Global News suggest that when some Canadian terrorism offenders are released, they're still radicalized. And as Jeff Semple reports, they still pose a threat.
The rise of the so-called Islamic State a few years ago saw a number of Canadians join their fight. Carlos Larmond from Ottawa was convicted in 2016 of attempting to join ISIS in Syria, sentenced to 7 years and transferred to Canada's highest security prison. Last year, his parole board said Larmond had not shown significant indications of change, attempting to radicalize other offenders, and posed a high risk to public safety. But despite those concerns, last December, Larmond was released from prison.
We have somebody who has shown no signs of having abandoned the ideology that got him convicted in the first place.
And he's not alone. Larmond is one of 5 terrorism convicts freed from Canadian prisons last year, 4 of whom, according to parole boards, still posed a threat.
We haven't been really good at developing any kind of real de-radicalization programs inside the prison system.
But it's unclear whether their prison time would have been long enough for de-radicalization. Most terrorism sentences in Canada recently have been 7 years or less. Their pre-trial custody counts for time and a half, and they're entitled to statutory release after 2/3, meaning that most are getting out much sooner.
It tells us that the court system, unfortunately, does not take terrorism as a serious offense.
This Canadian just served 14 years in a U.S. prison for sending money to an extremist group. Since his deportation to Canada a couple of years ago, he's received no contact from police.
Nobody even contacted my attorney.
Legal experts note that Canadian terrorists are typically released under strict conditions. Larmond, for example, must live at a halfway house and allow police to check his phone.
You're still being sentenced in that the system is still watching you, but it gives you an opportunity to sort of reintegrate.
But in rare cases, that reintegration backfires.
Go to the back of the store!
2 recent terror attacks in London, England were committed by convicts who just got out of prison. The British government responded by banning early release for terrorism offenders, adding new urgency to the debate here in Canada, with 3 more terrorism convicts up for parole this year. Jeff Semple, Global News, Toronto.